On today's episode of the Pretend GM, I got to speak with James Koh of basically everywhere. He's at RotoWire, Yahoo Fantasy Sports, Reception Perception. He's been at NFL Network. He's been working for DirecTV and now even NBA TV. He is a part of everything in the fantasy and sports space. He's been a reporter. He's been on TV. He's won an Emmy. James Koh has so many life skills that have translated into fantasy football success, and he has learned so much along the way, which is why I thought he'd be a great guest for you guys. So here is my talk with James Koh. Just like you and I, he's a Pretend GM. There he is. James
What's
Koh.
cracking, dude?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. You're like the only person I know in the industry that has more lights and more like just in the background of his of his video than me. And like I've had to clear it up over the years. And it's always just like it's so much to take in and it's so beautiful. Like what are all the things you have back there? I see some awards.
Yeah, so I've got some, so I've got my awards back here. First of all, let me just say this. This is an actual working office. Like these like blue folders that you see behind me, these are like tax records, like property documents. They've got like birth certificates.
Oh, I thought they were like way cooler stuff than that.
No.
Like,
God,
all
no.
of the original Reception Perception documents have been transcribed onto parchment.
What's funny about it is that before the pandemic, again, I would work here. Like I didn't have all the lights. And as you can tell, like all the lights are like on top of the boxes that I actually use to like put stuff in, you know? So
yeah,
I couldn't get rid of the documents because again, they have like important like stuff in them. So like I just had to like build around it. So then I just started adding a bunch of random stuff. The awards are not random. You know, I've got my Emmy awards and stuff back here, but I don't know, like bobbleheads and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's just, I just started adding some of that stuff.
By the way, audience member listening at home, you heard the flex. He's got an Emmy back there. He's got an
listen,
Emmy.
I've got multiple. Let me see.
Sorry, let's rephrase it. Emmys, multiple Emmys. What are they for?
Okay, so I've got two here. I've got two other Emmys somewhere running around. I'm not sure where they are.
You just have so many, you don't even know what to do with it. Like you just made another office for the Emmy. I got it, man. I got it.
One of the Emmys I know for sure I gave to one of my closest friends because we were drunk. And he's like, "Yo, bro, that's so cool, man. Can I have one of those Emmys?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, sure. Just take it." My wife was horrified. She's just like, "What are you doing, dude?" I'm like, "Bro, it's cool. I got 4 of them. Just let him have one. Who cares?" So I know it's chilling at my friend's house right now somewhere. I don't know. Anyways, what did I win them for? Before I got known in the fantasy industry, I was actually an award-winning journalist. I've won a bunch of actual journalism awards. I've got 2 Emmys for sports and then 2 Emmys for like hard news coverage. I've got like an Edward R. Murrow for my news coverage. I've got an AP Associated Press Award for Reporter of the Year as well. Like I was an actual like hardcore
like a real job.
Yeah,
not yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Not like what we do now, or you just talk
exactly.
about dudes that play games.
Right.
Man, okay, so you're like, this is going to be, I think, the most decorated person I've had on the show. This is a big deal. We've hopped into the data and like hearing different things that people. You said the stat du jour, right? You're an adjunct professor now. We mentioned this earlier. You are molding young minds. And I do think that like a good portion of what we do as fantasy analysts is not just to be like, hey, here are the answers, but I think we're doing our audience a disservice in our content if we are not like, offering up some sort of reasoning as to why we give these answers and trying to bridge that gap. How would you improve that in the fantasy space? Like trying to bridge that gap, especially when it comes to stuff like data. Like you just mentioned EPA, and I'm sure there were a ton of people that have heard that term before and never knew what it meant. And they would just hear their favorite analyst say it and be like, all right, well, that's what I'm going with. So how do you think what's the best way to bridge that gap?
Well, I think this is where, again, I think the number one skill in fantasy football is not stats. I think the number one skill in fantasy football is writing ability. which is, by the way, because of artificial, we were making jokes about ChatGPT or whatever, but it's just kind of like, all right, like AI and AI tools have degraded our writing ability as a human race in total. And it's like, and that part of it's sad, you know, it's just kind of like, all right, I think if you want to be a good analyst, you have to be a good writer. You know why? Because if you can't relay your complex information in a simple way, that is what good writing is, by the way. Good writing, and this is what I tell my students, good writing is taking complex information and making it simple. I promise you, if you follow me, if you watch my videos, I'll sneak in advanced stats like sneaking in vegetables into a meal. You know what I'm saying? Like, but right. I'm sneaking it, you know, but like, cause like when you watch me do fantasy cops or like watch me pretend to be the sleeper king or whatever, it's like, that's not like, I'm going to go out there and dress up like Joe Exotic, bruh. And like, and then I'm also talking about air yards per target. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not, you know, and so again, it's just kind of like, can you relay the information in a relatable way? I think I've really come to appreciate that aspect of it. And I just realized like people don't have time to learn all these complex things that people are talking about. So like, if you're a good writer and you can simplify, you'll always have a job. You'll always be at the top of your craft. You will always be somebody that is sought after. If you can figure out how to write well, not write like you're a data researcher or like a data scientist. No, like actual real life writing. I'm talking about writing like an actual person. So that people can understand you. I think that is a skill that is diminishing. And if that is a skill that you can end up doing well, you will never be out of a job, man, like ever.
I think that is something that you very eloquently said is starting to dissolve from this space. But I think that the best analysts are the ones who, like you said, can take that complex thing, make it something that is digestible and easy to understand. However, you don't talk down to your audience where you assume the audience is stupid. Like you treat them as if they are, like, because you also, I'm a firm believer that and I know people have their feelings about this word, as a content creator, you cultivate your audience. So like if you're the angry person with crazy takes, you're probably gonna have an audience full of angry people with crazy takes as well. If you are the one that speaks to your audience like they understand you and you understand them, there's a respect, they're probably going to respect you. I think one of my favorite colleagues in the industry is JJ Zachariason, who he writes and speaks exactly how he would off camera. And that's how he speaks to his audience. And he loves to live in that gray area. He's mentioned that a million times as a fantasy analyst, where we kind of need to. There are no absolutes. And like you mentioned earlier, we really only know like 10% about these players, right? And with that, you know, like there is so much that we can be right, we can be wrong, it can be all over the spectrum. But when you sit down to start to look at a player and decide, okay, this is a player I'm going to rank a little higher, or this is a player that I really want to target on a weekly basis or in a trade or in a draft, whatever it may be, what is the first thing that you look at when you evaluate a player? I know there are people that go all over the board of like, I just want to know this is a talented guy. I want to see opportunity. What is it for you?
It's volume. It starts and stops there, you know? And again, I think, you know, when you start taking a look at any stat has to then tie back into volume. If we're talking about good analysis in fantasy football, right? So when you talk about talent then begets more volume. That's how that conversation goes. And then again, if you're not going to sit there and grind the film, that's why yards per route run has become a very popular stat. I don't make fun of yards per route run. I think it's a good stat. I think it's overused, and I think a lot of people don't understand the context of why we are using yards per route run. But in my humble opinion, I think yards per route run is a talent indicator, right? Yes. And that is now feeding into, because he's talented, he is getting a lot of yards per every route that this player is running. Because of that will result in more volume, right? But again, it all has to come back to volume. I don't care how quote unquote talented you are, or the film doesn't lie, which is so ridiculous. And literally it makes me cringe every single time I hear that. But it's
good. I was going to ask you what your ick is in fantasy football. It sounds like that's it.
That's so stupid. I can't even believe people think that the film doesn't lie. Like, what? What are you talking? Okay. Anyways, whatever. We can get to that later. But it's like any stat that you talk about has to then apply itself at the end of the road. What is the end conversation? The end conversation has to be about volume. And again, there's a lot of different ways to talk about volume: targets, air yards, pass attempts, rush attempts. Again, there's different ways to talk about it. But it's funny though, Alfredo, when you could talk about the most complex stats in the world, but it really then, again, like I said, the end conversation has to be about volume, and the pure stats regarding volume are the most easiest stats in the whole world to understand. Did you get targeted? Did you get a rush attempt? Did you throw the ball? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Damn, it is so simple when you get to the end point, but it is so messy. It's like 15 strings all coming together, winding up into this one little endpoint. But the endpoint is simple.
So how do you counteract that? Like, let's say there's going to be sometimes, because I've discussed this before with other players, is there are going to be, let's say for specific examples, running backs who I will say are, I jokingly call them like middle management running backs, the Alexander Madisons and Zach Mosses of the world that get CEO level opportunity, at least perceived opportunity to start the year. Sure. How do you counteract that? Because I think we can go into a season or even go into a weekly matchup, right? Because this is going to drop in the middle of the season, where we say, ooh, this guy should get a lot of volume. Does that ever tend to bite you in the butt? Or like, how do you try to manage those expectations or keep that balanced?
Well, again, it is a conversation of like, again, there's 15 different strands that make up the string, and the endpoint is the volume, right? But it's like, okay, so yeah, you could be right on a number of those strings, but at the end of the day, you might just end up being wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because you haven't factored in all of the other strings that go into that endpoint volume metric that we're talking about, right? So yeah, you talk about opportunities, and it's like, by the way, that is why those veteran players are always undervalued, right? Like the Chuba Hubbards of the world, like the like the Rico Dowdles of the world. Rico Dowdle had 1,300 yards last year, bro. Like, this is a guy that went undrafted, right? Because it just comes down to, do you believe that this person can actually stay on the football field? But veteran guys, because I think my personal opinion is that we talk about talent too much in fantasy football.
Okay.
And the funny thing about that is, okay, the talent has to then tie into the volume. But why don't we actually talk about the talent tying into the volume? Talking about talent is intrinsically a very messy conversation. You might think somebody's talented. I could go to 10 other people who think he sucks. I mean,
right.
That's why this whole film don't lie thing is so stupid, right? Like, yes, it does. It lies all the damn time based on what biases you have watching the film, bro. Like, what you mean? So again, I personally think that fantasy football is so different than real life football talk, because in real life football, you could talk about talent all day long, and it's a fun barbershop, barroom conversation. I love that conversation. I'll have that conversation for hours on end, all good. But when we talk about fantasy football, we better start talking about volume. Can they stay on the football field? And can they earn targets and opportunities, rushing carries and all that kind of stuff? That's really what it comes down to for me. So, you're talking about how do you determine that? Well, there's so many different factors that go into that that's what makes this game so crazy and so fun.
I love specifically how you said it's like a rope with a bunch of different strands, right? Because there's not any one thing. And I think that's something that has been the theme throughout every single episode I've recorded so far, is that it feels like every fantasy manager or a lot of analysts are out there searching for the perceived skeleton key, the thing that is going to solve fantasy football. Totally. And it's just not there. And it's so funny because if I were just to look at like Twitter or listen to podcasts or whatever, like read articles, it would always seem like everyone has found the new stat or the new perspective that is going to fix fantasy football. And then I've spoken now, this is episode number 11 that I'm recording. Every single person has been like, no, there's nothing. Like there's no one thing. It's a bunch of different things. And so you're the first person that I've heard say it in that way, though, where there's like 15 different strands all kind of weaving together. And yeah, I mean, the first thing really is, are they going to be on the field and are they playing? Right? Like that's the only way to determine their value there. And you mentioned film don't lie and how something like that annoys you to hear. Do you have an ick? Something that just like grosses you out when you hear it, see it. It could be anything from how a fantasy manager plays the game to how a coach handles an interview to even how analysis is done. What's that one thing that you hear it, see it, feel it, and you're just like, no, get this away from me?
Oh, golly. Again, a simple question with a complicated answer, you know? I don't know if there is one thing that I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling that, but I think efficiency metrics definitely are something that I take a really close look at. And because there's so many stats available now too, for wide receivers, I do end up looking at alignment a lot as well. And to me, it's like, we could talk about players that live in the slot. But if we're talking like top end of your draft, you want to take like a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. That player better be able to win as an outside wide receiver. And if they can't, the numbers show that the vast majority of top 10 wide receivers play the majority of their snaps as an outside wide receiver. So are there cases, of course, where slot receivers do really well? Of course.
Yeah, there's always going to be exceptions. There's CeeDee Lamb, exactly.
CeeDee Lamb plays mostly in the slot. Amon-Ra St. Brown plays mostly, although it's funny because last year he didn't play mostly in the slot. Last year he played mostly outside, which is really interesting, which, by the way, probably maybe explains why he wasn't quite as good the year before, because he's not quite as good as an outside wide receiver anyways. But I think probably if we're looking at like in terms of news coverage or something that I kind of like, I kind of raise my eyebrows at, it might be about alignment, probably most for a wide receiver. But again, I also think too, it's like, man, if I hear about offensive lines being shaky too, I think that probably gives me a lot of pause too.
That last one you just mentioned, the offensive line, is something that I think that even the most, and I hate to use this word, the most casual of fans can relate to, because everyone has had their favorite team have a bad offensive line. I mean, I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, and we've had a perpetually bad offensive line for my entire life. Sure. And like, I know how much it affects the offense and how much it affects everything. That's one of those that I think everyone can relate to. And another thing that I think a lot of us relate to and share frustrations with end up being players that have an injury history. And I have seen so many different strong opinions too, man. Just like a wide variety of, there's no such thing as injury prone, to that guy is the definition of injury prone, to I'll never take him again, to that guy misses a bunch of games. And then you look and like, they never actually missed games. They were just questionable each week, but then they played. Right. There's so many ways that people look at players and injuries. How do you approach that? Because I think there's such far ends of the spectrum where you could just actively avoid them, or say, man, I'm getting great value out of these players that everyone perceives as an injury risk.
Yeah, I think if you are getting a really, really good value, I think that plays into it too. I think about upside a lot. That's how the only way that I play is thinking about upside. Like, I just want upside at every position on every pick.
You would say upside over consistency for you on pretty much every pick
time. I don't care. I don't care about consistency, because at some point you have enough players on your team that if they're not all going to hit 1 week and they're not all going to bust on 1 week. I say that, but sometimes it does. But
that's just the game.
Yeah, it's just the game. Anyways, but so yeah, I'm not really looking for consistency all that much. Consistency is nice. It's nice to have a player that always gives you 10 to 12 points. That's great, man. I love it. But when I draft, I am not looking for that player. I might look for that player on the waiver wire for sure. If that player exists, then yeah, I'll take that player on the waiver wire, especially if we're talking about a running back, like a running back 2 or like a flex or something. That'd be nice. But on draft day, nah, I literally do not care about consistency. I don't care about bye weeks either. I'm kind of a psycho. But yeah, I don't care. I'm going upside every single time. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought there.
We're talking about the injured players and
the injured players.
When to. Yeah, sorry, that took us on a different tangent about upside.
I think the more injury prone a player, or the longer the injury, I hate to use the word injury prone now because it's so like loaded, but like it like makes people like get mad at you for some reason. I don't know why, but like the longer the injury history is for a player, and the more recent a major catastrophic injury is. Okay, not using injury prone. But when you take a look at injury history, that will lend itself to more and more of a discount, right? Like how much of a deeper discount are you getting on Brandon Ayuk this year because of the knee injury? Like, so at some point though, like if you got into like the 5th round of your draft, is that appetite for risk injury enough where you're like, yo, Brandon Ayuk's a really, when healthy, is a super talented player. I'll take him in the 5th. Or are you going to say, well, okay, he's been so discounted, now he's in the 10th round. I mean, at some point, everyone's going to say, okay, bro, like we can't keep letting Brandon Ayuk slide. This is crazy. Like we just can't keep doing that, right? Like he's not going to go in the 15th round of any draft. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to slide that far, bro. So like at some point, people, that's the injury discount that you are getting. And it really comes down to, again, it comes down to volume, but it's like, all right, well, how talented is this dude, and how much volume is he going to get because he is talented, and when he returns and is fully healthy? I think that part of it, there's no magic answer there, but yeah, injuries definitely play a role. Can I also just say this? I mean, there's just so much evidence that like if you've had a major catastrophic injury, especially in college, the numbers are overwhelming. Like, yes, you are more likely to get injured as a pro. Like, what? I don't understand what we're talking about. Is that not the definition of injury prone? Is that not true, or is it? I don't know. Like, I know doctors, there's been a lot of doctors, like people with like legit medical degrees, saying there's no such thing as being injury prone. Okay, I understand that, but like, what about if you suffered a major catastrophic injury? There's overwhelming evidence to suggest that if you have suffered one of those, you are more likely to have another injury. Maybe not a major catastrophic injury, but some injury related to that injury before. Like, that's what I don't get. Like, how do those two things exist? Like, how do medical professionals tell me that there's no such thing as injury prone, but then the data tells you that if you have an injury history, you're more likely to get injured? That second thing I just said there, that is literally the definition of injury prone, is it not? Like, yeah. Am I tripping? Like, what's happening here?
Dude, I think it's one of those things where I think there's a big gap, and it actually circles right back perfectly to what you said earlier, which is taking a wealth of information and being able to condense that into something simple and understandable. And I think that especially when it comes to medicine and injuries, like that's where there's this massive gap of someone saying, no, player X is not injury prone. That is not a real thing. And then the fantasy manager says, well, player X has been injured 5 out of the last 6 seasons. Then how does this take place? And it's just like, we know people in our life that are clumsy and more likely to have accidents. I'm not saying football players are clumsy, but it's just like, there are guys, like I remember hearing about Christian McCaffrey saying, oh, I stopped lifting to look good and I started doing more yoga and that made me more flexible. And it was like, well, dude, of course. Yeah, that's something that was definitely being like, it was definitely a detriment to your body at the time, and he became healthier. And then obviously we ended up with the thing last year where he then has the Achilles tendonitis. And I think that's going to be really interesting. Like we're talking about this now, he has the potential to be one of the best values in drafts, because I think by talent and volume, we'd all say number 1 pick. And then you get worried about injury stuff and you're saying, maybe late first, early second. So like, But this coming out in the middle of the season, I'm very intrigued to see how that ends up going.
Yeah, I think It's funny, like I just got done saying I'm always going to pick for upside. CMC is such an interesting case because I think he just has had so much volume in his career. I'm just, again, he'd have to fall to me in the third round before I'm feeling comfortable because I tell you what, man, like you can't, even though I'm saying I'm drafting for upside, at the same time, I'm also trying to avoid downside in the first 2 rounds, first 2 rounds only. And then after that, I don't like downside becomes less of a factor. Like,
do you feel that way on a weekly basis? Like when you're setting your starting lineup, are you just kind of, how do you navigate that? Is it very similar to your draft strategy?
No, once the season starts and like you have a pretty good handle on injury reports. By the way, injury reporting has like gone like way up. Like injury reporting's so good now. Like, do you remember what injury reporting was like 15 years ago, bro? It's like, damn, you didn't get nothing. Yeah. Now it's like, yeah, it's like DNP. Why did DNP? Like you have no clue. Now it's like, yeah, you get like medical analysis on the spot on a DNP, man. It's crazy. No, once the season starts, I don't care about you have a good handle, you have a good amount of information to make pretty informed decisions. But I just think if you bust out your pick, if your first round pick busts because of injury or because of any reason for that matter, it's like your chances of winning your league are almost nothing. And it's, I mean, again, people are going to disagree, and would say, well, anecdotally, this happened. It's like, I don't care about your anecdotally. Like, it's been shown, like if your first round player does not perform if you take your wide receiver 1 ends up not being a top 30 wide receiver, AKA a bust, it's almost impossible to win your league. Almost impossible. You have to then make some kind of miraculous discovery on the waiver wire to balance that out. Right. Like, but that's a really, really difficult thing to overcome when your first or second round pick ends up not being top 30 or top 40 at their position.
You mentioned the waiver wire there. And that's kind of the natural thing that happens when we have players with injuries or players that, quote, bust and are not playing as well. How do you navigate that process of being like, man, I drafted this player in the 3rd or 4th round, but it's week 8 and this guy's still not producing? Like, how do you navigate that process of saying, okay, this is a sunk cost at this point. It's okay for me to drop this player, or even early in the season where I do tend to think we get the most value out of the waiver wire because you end up getting players who get thrust into bigger roles due to injury. And then you're going to get a full season worth of work. It's basically like the free spot in bingo, but for your draft. So what's your process there with waiver wire and how do you approach it?
In terms of drops are so important, again, and so what I look at there is, all right, what's the downside risk and what's the upside, right? So for me, I look at a player and most likely we know who is the wide receiver 1, who's the wide receiver 2 on most teams. If I've got a wide receiver 2 who is underperforming, he's gone, right? Because he'll never be the 1, you know what I mean? So, there are a few exceptions to that. Like if T. Higgins, who's clearly the number 2, is struggling, I'm not going to drop him, right? Because he's still going to get a ton of volume overall. But yeah, I mean, if we start taking a look at I don't know, let's say I really like Cooper Kupp. I don't know why you would like Cooper Kupp, but there's going to be somebody out there who likes Cooper Kupp. Right. He's the number 2 wide receiver in Seattle. Bro, if he comes out in the first 3 weeks of the season, he stinks, you're dropping that guy because, again, what is the upside there for a player like that versus, and I know this is like the best example of it. Last year, I drafted a lot of a ton of Zamir White. I can honestly tell you, and this is embarrassing, but I can honestly tell you, I held on to Zamir White through 12 freaking weeks before I was like, okay, I guess it's not happening.
Yeah.
Because again, I look at the upside here of, yeah, but Alexander Mattison is old and he sucks. How about if they just are like, okay, well, Alexander Madison's not getting it done. You know what? Screw it. The season's going nowhere. Let's just give Zamir White the load, Then all of a sudden you're like, all right, well, I just dropped a starting running back onto the waiver wire for no reason. You know what I mean? So I think that part of it is big. I think tight ends and quarterbacks, I have no problems, dropping into the waiver wire. If again, I look at the roster construction and say, for example, like, I don't know, like I'm so big on Jatavion Sanders this year. I think he's going to have a great season. Actually, Brenton Strange, better example.
I like Brenton Strange as well.
I love Brenton Strange. But if we're being honest, he's not more than the third option in the passing game, right, and he's not anything better than like the fourth option on the offense, right? If Brenton Strange comes out and struggles the first like 3 weeks, I don't care. I'm dropping into the waiver. Who cares? Like, let me just stream that position. Like, who cares? Like, it's no skin off my back. So I do think that part of it is big too. The player I'm never dropping is a rookie. If I drafted a rookie, I'm never dropping that guy in the first 8 weeks of the season. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You drafted the rookie to play for you in the back half of the year, not in the front half, If he ends up putting 0 spots up for the first 6 weeks of the season, I literally don't care. Like, that to me is irrelevant. Like, let me go chase that Odell Beckham Jr. upside where, this guy did, again, because of injuries, did nothing the first 6 weeks of the season. Last 12, straight league winner. Like, that's different, So I'm never dropping a rookie that is highly regarded and has a chance on his team to be the number 2 or number 1. So, like, that's probably, like, pecking order, thinking mentality-wise, like how I approach who I'm going to drop into the waiver wire.
I think that is going to be some of the most valuable information from this episode, especially because this is going to drop like in the early to mid season of the fantasy football season. And I see it all the time. And like the specific example was a few years ago with Justin Jefferson, where nothing was really happening and people dropped him by like week 4. Then all of a sudden he takes off, right? There was young injured Odell Beckham who was available on the waiver wire, as a rookie, and people picked him up. Like, it just happens. So it's like, that's a great reminder for people that if you went and you drafted, especially these guys who the rookies, they do get steamed up the draft boards, and for good reason, because they eventually do become very, very productive. But it's just like, don't go in there guns blazing and draft, your Trevion Henderson in round 5 and then be upset at week 5 or 6 that he's not a top 15 running back. Like, you've got to wait a little bit longer. And I think with that, though, it's like you do have the disappointment of a player, or you do have a player that maybe hasn't had that breakout yet. I think trades become so important for fantasy managers. Like, that's where the draft is important. It sets the table. But for me, it's waiver wire and trades that can really win you your season as you're going along. How do you typically find a trade that's worth pursuing? What's that process like with you and maybe the other manager?
The first thing I do when I look at a trade is, okay, obviously you analyze, okay, what do I need? That part of it's obvious. But the first thing I do outside of that is, okay, what does this other manager need? Right? Like, and so I'm not, if a person is loaded at running back, I'm not going to offer my third running back to them to try to go take one of their wide receivers. Like, that happens far too often. And to be honest with you, I think my mentality is I don't want to win the trade. That's not my mentality. My mentality is I want to improve my team. That's different. That is different. Winning a trade means you fleeced the other manager, right? That's winning the trade. Okay, that's not my mentality at all. I am looking to legitimately improve my team. And if that ends up costing me, if I end up quote unquote losing that trade, but it helps my team, okay, well, I don't really mind that. Right. So again, I might offer up a trade that I think in my humble opinion is fair. But I know will not hurt the other team. I'm not looking to hurt the other team. I'm only looking to improve my team. Now, if the trade goes down and things happen in the season and it becomes a lopsided trade and I end up winning, well, dude, listen, at the time of the trade, that wasn't my intention. Right. Certainly. So I don't know. I think because of that, I actually don't find that many trade partners. I'm not the kind of guy that sends out like 50 million trades. That's not really me, because again, I do have that mentality of like, yo, I really do want to help improve both of our teams. And when you have that mentality, trade partners or trade scenarios really become dwindled down.
You know what? This a number of the analysts that have been on here have said the same thing. There really is no winning the trade. There's no losing the trade. It's just like, because you don't know immediately out of the gate, like who quote won the trade. What you really want to do is create a good relationship with the other person in that league, so you can go back to them and trade again, whether it's, redraft league, dynasty league, whatever it is. And if both teams get better, that's just a win for everybody, right? Like that's right. Where you want to be. Like that's the whole reason to approach it. And I think that what happens is sometimes out of desperation, like we can't put a starting lineup together, and I'll see people go, well, I really need an RB2. I really need an RB2 to throw into my lineup. And it's like, well, right. maybe we scale this back a little bit, like I'm not going to tell the other person in my league that, but like sure. There's other ways to go about it. Right. And, I know that a lot of that desperation comes out of starting decisions. And especially as it gets later into the season, people will have this question of, okay, do I start my quote stud, the guy who's struggled for the last 4 weeks, but he's a name that everyone knows? Or do I start this guy that I picked up off the waiver wire last week, who is now a starter and has a good matchup? How do you balance that between saying, okay, this is the player that got me here, but this is the guy who is hot lately and has a good matchup?
Yeah, I think matchups probably play more of an important role in my mind on a week-by-week basis than pre-draft capital or perceived talent. I think the matchups dictate so much. And again, great matchup leads to more volume, leads to greater efficiency. So you get better efficiency with the opportunities that you get. You get more exposure to touchdowns. That's part of, actually, touchdowns is really interesting because touchdowns are really, really fickle. On a year-by-year basis, right. Touchdowns are. But on a week-by-week basis, it's actually not that bad, right? Like, you get a pretty good sense of who might have touchdown opportunities on a week-by-week. And as we know, like, if your player scores a touchdown, bro, like, you're pretty much set for the week. You're good, So again, I think touchdown opportunity makes a big difference. I think week by week, I just play the matchups a lot more than I care about perceived talent or pre-draft, pre-draft prices in terms of that's how you determine your studs. I took this guy in the 3rd round. He's my stud. I got to play my stud. The further you get away from the draft, the less that should matter to you. And as a matter of fact, by the time you get to week 6, I don't think that matters at all. Like, there's no such, like, because you took a guy in the 3rd round does not make him your quote unquote stud. That would be my thing. So that's probably how I approach it.
All right, Professor, if you could teach everybody watching and listening one thing that would instantly improve their success rate in fantasy football, what is it?
Again, I think just going beyond the headlines, I think would help you considerably, trying to figure out what is actually going on with the player and the scenario. I think that ends up helping you kind of sort of wrap your mind around, man, can I also say this? Like, it's kind of weird. Like, your brain works in like really weird ways. This is why I truly believe, like, you have to actually put out there and say what you want. Like, verbalize it to someone, not just yourself, because when that happens, like, your brain is working on in the background. Like, you're going for a walk, your brain's working in the background. Like, it's like you're playing video games. I promise you, your brain's still problem solving in the background, and so that's why I'm saying, like, even for fantasy football, it's like, all right, if you go beyond the headlines and actually dig into like what a player's going through and like what's happening with the scenario, maybe you don't make a decision like right then and there, right? But like, in like maybe a few hours or maybe the next day or maybe the next week, when the scenario changes just a little bit, your brain has had enough time to actually think about it and like process that information. And then you make a better informed decision right then and there. So like, I would just say, like, again, this all just goes back to just read more. I know that's like, no, don't say that, boomer. Don't read it. It's like, nah, man, like, y'all gotta read more, man. Come on, bro. Just read more stuff. And like, I'm talking not like AI shit either. Like, I'm talking like actually like read like human crafted words, like,
yeah,
go out there and do that, man. Like, it'll improve you as a human. And I promise you, if you improve as a human, you'll improve as a fantasy football player too, man.
I know that's one thing that I have struggled with in the past is like, I'm not an avid reader. I'm not like, I get into it and like, I'm not talking about articles. I'm talking about like actual books. Like I try to sit there
Oh,
and do it and I
same.
get in and I struggle. So I'll do like audio books, but when it's come to articles, I've really tried to condition myself to not be like, well, where are the bullet points and look for like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
easy
yeah, yeah.
stuff. Like it's because like all the juicy bits are in. I hate that I just said that because it's gonna get clipped out of context, but like the best parts of the
Yeah,
article are
yeah.
there in like in the parts that aren't bullet pointed or bolded all the time, right? And like
Correct.
and that's what
Correct.
separates you from someone else, right? Is are you willing to go and do that little extra bit of research than your league mate who's just going to look at that title or look at, you know, that quick blog post, is get in there and reading it. So I love that you said that. So one thing that you're working on right now, the running back charting at Reception Perception, is something that I saw that you guys are going to be doing new. Wow. First of all, I mean, yes, the people have been clamoring for this for years.
Yeah.
I got to know, how does this come about? And I mean, you don't have to give any proprietary information here, but what do you hope to teach your audience with that?
Well, you know, Matt and I have been talking about this for since the company was started. Like since company inception, we literally have been talking about, yeah, well, what about if we added running back charting, you know? And it's like, and this goes back to me, I just love the running back position. And I tell you what, if you are charting and doing, you know, the film grinding, you better love it, because this shit gets boring fast, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, if you're not, you know, and if you don't like love it, you trust me, you're not going to get a lot of it done, you know, cause it just doesn't end up happening. But I love the position. And I have been flirting with this idea of doing running back charting since the company's inception. Various things have prevented me from doing that. Mostly because I know the amount of time and energy that it takes to do this properly. And I just never really had that before. I couldn't, or if I did, I couldn't commit to it. Right. The company started when, you know, I was working, dang near full time over at DirecTV. Right. So, I had that as my primary. This was kind of a side business for me. And by the way, when I say side business, trust me, it's not like I didn't care about it. I cared about it considerably, but also it's like I have to pay for a mortgage and cars and kids and all that stuff too. So I have a regular job, man. Like, you know, and that was at DirecTV for so many years. But once that went away, I had a little bit more time. Then I started dabbling a little bit into it. And then this past off season, I just finally said, you know what, man, I don't know why I'm dragging my feet on this, man. Like, let me just go and really commit myself to it. So that's what I did. And I've been working on it in the background. I really haven't made a lot of it. I haven't been advertising it at all until we finally dropped it. Just mostly because, again, it's just kind of like, I wanted to make sure that the data was good. First,
Yeah, you want to perfect the process, of course.
Yeah, and also too, is it like applicable? Can I take this data and actually apply it somewhere? And will it, like, you know, will it be believable? Will it be a product that people are willing to pay for? Because it's a pay site, you know, and you know, that stuff, like thinking about the customer is really, really important to me. I don't want to just charge people if I think like, okay, well, I did the work, so now pay me. No, that's not it. It's like I did the work, and then I'm thinking about the customer. Like, will the customer who's willing to dish out this kind of money for it, hard-earned money for this information, is the information worth it? And again, do my writing skills capture this in a good, digestible way? And once I like got those things down, then yeah, that process. Once I got the process down and I felt comfortable with it, that's when I debuted it. Which is, again, why we debuted it like in July and not in April, right? I was still perfecting the charting process. I was still perfecting the writing around it. We were still perfecting the graphics. surrounding it. Because again, the last thing I want to do is offer this up to paying consumers and then not be happy with the product. So that was very much something that we were working on in the background. And once I felt comfortable with it, that's when we debuted it.
Well, and I know like a big thing too in fantasy football and just in the football industry in general, is you mentioned the customer, right? It's like at this point, if someone's looking for something, they've probably seen everything at this point. Like it's very hard for us to find something that is innovative and fresh. And that's why I wanted to do this show, because I felt like it was different. It's teaching a man to fish as opposed to just like, here's the fish, buddy, good luck, you know? And like, I think that's what you're doing as well with charting these running backs, is you're giving them something different that they haven't had. And you mentioned fantasy managers as the customer, because honestly, that's what they are. Like that does tend to be our relationship with them in one way or another, whether they're purchasing something from you or not. Your audience is your customer. How do you see the business of fantasy football sort of evolving over, let's say, the next like 5 to 10 years here? Because like AI is becoming a thing, and I think we're seeing less and less people get involved in the fantasy industry, if I'm not mistaken. And the number of companies appear to be like consolidating. There does seem to be a trend where it's getting smaller, and we're seeing AI come into it and more tools and more data.
That's interesting. I would actually disagree with you there.
Okay.
I think the industry in terms of mom and pop shops is very much expanding. And again, I just want to make it clear, Reception Perception is not a fantasy football website. It's just a straight football website.
Yeah.
The application of our data is obviously primarily towards fantasy football, of course, but anytime you engage with our content, so little of it is actually about fantasy. We don't talk about that very much at all. That being said, Matt and I obviously are very well known in the fantasy space, which is why our data is being applied in that manner, which is fine. But again, I do think that there's more mom and pop shops out there, because I think from what I have certainly seen in terms of pay is just going down. These legacy companies are just not paying what they used to. And at some point it has reached a critical mass where, why would I work for a company and get paid $30,000 when, again, I could strike out on my own and potentially make the exact same amount in year one, if not more.
I think that's more along the lines of where I was like thinking. I probably conveyed that wrong. It's just like, it does seem like the tides are turning a little bit, where you're probably right. I think we are seeing more of these independent creators making their companies.
I think what's important too is, okay, have you done the work to strike out on your own? I marvel at, people like, listen, I love Matt Berry. I grew up reading and watching Matt Berry. He's an OG, and he's a pillar in the community and all that kind of stuff, man. It's cool. Like whatever he's done with his companies, come on, man. Like it's unbelievable, bro. He's a true one of one, a pioneer. That being said, there's only so many Matt Berrys we have, like, right. And the thing is, he is kind of sort of been grandfathered in, whereas nowadays, if you want to crack the code, I very much appreciate the folks like Matt Harmon who have struck out on their own and sort of cracked the code on their own. They understand social media. They understand the value of information. And that is what they're providing, right? I look at like Sal Vitri, who I think is with Yahoo now, and he cracked the Twitter code. Like he figured out the algorithm there and really figured that out. I look at somebody like, who's the dude who owns BDGE?
Nick Ercolano.
Yeah, Nick Ercolano.
Yeah, Nick.
Wow. What? I mean, shoot. If anyone wants to get into the business of fantasy football, bro, if you're not following and don't know about videos. Nick Ercolano, like you need to be watching that. That is incredible. But man, you talk about a guy who's bootstrapped this mother. Like, yo, BDGE is an incredible story. So they've definitely done that. I think about like Brett Coleman. He's done such a great job unlocking YouTube. Like, so he's figured out how to make YouTube profitable for them. The next frontier is, things like TikTok or like things like, Instagram or whatever. I don't think there's, for Faraz Siddiqui with Upper Hand Fantasy has cracked the code in terms of Instagram. Yeah. So, but again, it's like there's just more space to be had. There's just so many more opportunities to be had on these social media platforms now. I think Instagram, even though it's been around for a long time, I think fantasy football on Instagram can grow a lot. Fantasy football on TikTok can grow a ton. And yeah, there are those opportunities there. It's a long way of me saying, if you can build your audience there, then you can monetize your audience. But if you try to monetize before you build, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, man. And plus, all those content creators and business builders, honestly, is the way they should be 100%. Titled, have just done a fantastic job. Faraz is actually going to be a guest as well here on Pretend GM. I've got him booked as well. But yeah, man, I think like there's you and I, every time we have met, which has only been a couple times, but almost every time we've spoken, it has always come back to content, and like the direction of the industry and things like that. And that's, I do kind of find like my brain, I think you and I have similar brains. Like our brains always go back to content and like, totally. What can we do next? And when you were saying that stuff at the beginning of the interview of like, yeah, man, I'm always kind of looking for more work in like a way that your brain stays busy. I'm kind of the same. Like I feel weird if I have time off. I went on vacation last week and I just stayed working throughout it, man. It's a crazy mindset, but I think like, they're some of the best people in this industry have had that mindset, and it just worked out so well for them. It's just hard, man. Cause if you don't do that, I mean, especially I'm in my 40s, bro. Like if you don't have that mindset, like I don't know, man, what are we doing out here, man? Like, it's like I get it. Chasing down paychecks is great. Bro, listen to me. If I could, I would love to work for one company. I would love that. If one company were to come down and be like, yo, we're going to give you $200K and just do your thing, baby. Like, trust me, I would ditch everything. But they said the one condition is you got to ditch everything else. I would do it in a heartbeat. They're like, we'll give you a 10-year contract. We're going to pay you $200,000 a year. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm like, all right, great. Let's make it work. Let's make it work. I will ditch everything. I'll shoot. Don't tell Matt I said this. I would sell my stake in Perception. I would sell my stake, to whoever wants to buy it at market value. If that's what it took and somebody gave me a 10-year contract, I would love that. But that doesn't exist, bro. That doesn't exist. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I got to go out there and hustle and try to make my 200K somehow doing something else, but I got to get out there and hustle because shoot, that's the only way. I mean, I'm not going to go out there and be like, oh, my kids are starving or whatever. But it's like, yeah, like I want to build a nice future for them, bro. Like, can I do that? Like, that'd be great, So, yeah, I think about that all the time, man. And like, I'm literally obsessed with that. So like, I have to go out there and grind and like try to find jobs. And like, that's my passion, is just to like try to go out there and essentially make money. All right. Last question here. This one's from me, and it has nothing to do with fantasy football. I know that you are like me in that you love your characters, your movies, your shows. Every time I see you, you're wearing some sort of dope shirt or sweater or something. You got a Dragon Ball shirt right now with Kid Goku and his tail and everything, man. So I got to hear it. Your Mount Rushmore. Okay, so 4 of your top favorite pop culture characters. Who are they? Pop culture. I thought we were going to go straight anime or cartoon figures. We can do cartoon figures. Let's go. Let's keep it simpler. Let's condense. Okay, because pop culture is big. Yeah, I know that can get a little crazy. That's a little big. If I'm going, cartoon characters, Mount Rushmore. I'll put Optimus Prime in there. Okay. I will add Goku. I think Goku is at this point a well recognized and Mount Rushmore typey cartoon character. God, that's a strong start right there. Optimus Prime and Goku. Come on, bro. I like the patting on the back. Let's keep going. You got it.
Shoot, man. Okay, now I'm kind of pressed up though. More recently, man, I have been literally obsessed with Demon Slayer.
Okay. Is there a superhero in this? Is there like a 90s cartoon?
Oh, I mean, shoot. We got to go Batman.
Okay, thank you. I was going to be offended if you didn't.
Yeah, come on. We can't forget Batman. Batman the animated series is one of the best shows
yes.
Period, you know. Not even just animated, just a great freaking show. So Batman will be up there. Oh man. Who else we got, bro? Like I'm trying to scroll back into the memory banks now. Like what shows did I watch?
Let me see.
Bro?
You got the DC, you got Marvel, you got like Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe.
Ninja Turtles is great. You know what? We can, but see, you'd have to put them in as a group, you know?
Put them in as a group.
Fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
We'll put the Ninja Turtles in as a group. I think that's good.
There we go. I love it. James, thank you so much for joining me here today, man. This has been a lot of fun. I've gotten to learn a lot from you personally. I know that the audience did as well. This was great, man. Please, just really quick, let everybody know what you're working on and what you're doing lately.
Okay, so I'm working with RotoWire right now, which is fine. But I really want to push the two websites that I either own outright or co-own. I own SleeperKingFootball.com. It's got all that running back stuff that we were talking about before. ReceptionPerception.com also has the exact same information, but if you wanted wide receivers and quarterbacks to go along with that at an elevated price, you can get that there done as well. But yeah, man, if you just want to follow me on social media, I post a lot of stuff and information that can be great and stuff like that too. So at James D. Koh, last name spelled Koh. But if you want to follow me, that's my handle on every single social media platform that I am currently on.
Well, James, thank you once again for joining me, and for everybody that has watched or listened all the way through. I can't thank you enough. We'll be back again next week. I'll see you next time. Adios.